Commander Thex Gravok stood 8 feet tall, his 4 muscular arms crossed behind his back, watching the pathetic display before him with barely contained disgust. The Korthak Military Academy on Zelian Prime had been accepting mixed-species cadets for exactly 3 rotations now, and honestly, what a joke that turned out to be. His compound eyes swept across the training grounds, taking in the usual suspects. The Vorthan cadets with their razor-sharp claws, practicing combat maneuvers that could slice through titanium. The Nexari twins, Zeph and Nex, their scaled hides glistening as they lifted weights that would crush a hover car. Even the supposedly delicate Etherian cadets could phase through solid matter at will, making them nearly impossible to pin down in combat. And then there were the humans. Gravok's mandibles clicked together in what passed for a sneer among his species. Soft, pink, fragile little creatures that looked like they might break if you breathed on them too hard. No natural armor, no enhanced strength, no telepathic abilities, no nothing. They were basically walking meat sacks with delusions of grandeur. His gaze landed on the newest addition to this cosmic comedy show, a human female named Maya Torres. She stood barely 5.5 feet tall, her dark hair pulled back in some primitive knot, brown eyes darting nervously around the training facility. Her uniform hung loose on her small frame, and she kept fidgeting with her equipment belt like she had never seen advanced technology before. Look at that, Gravok thought to himself, watching Maya struggle to activate her plasma training rifle. She cannot even figure out basic weapon systems. How did Earth's government think sending these weaklings to our premier military academy was a good idea? Are they trying to insult us? The morning sun of Zelian Prime cast long shadows across the academy grounds, its dual star system creating an orange and purple hue that would have been beautiful if Gravok was not so busy being annoyed. 47 cadets from 12 different species, and somehow the humans always managed to make everything take twice as long. Maya dropped her weapon for the 3rd time in as many minutes, the plasma rifle clattering against the reinforced training deck. Several Nexari cadets hissed with amusement, their forked tongues flicking out to taste her embarrassment in the air. Gravok felt his patience meter dropping into the danger zone already, and the day had barely started. "All right, maggots." Gravok's voice boomed across the zero-gravity combat chamber, his forearms gesturing dramatically. "Today we run the gauntlet of agony simulation. For those of you with actual warrior blood, this should be a pleasant warm-up. For others," his compound eyes fixed directly on Maya, who was still fumbling with her gravity boots. "Well, try not to embarrass your entire species more than usual." The chamber hummed to life, artificial gravity generators shutting down with a mechanical whine. Immediately, the alien cadets adapted like they were born for it. The Nexari twins, Zeph and Nex, used their powerful tail muscles to propel themselves through the air with graceful precision. The Vorthan cadets spread their wing membranes, gliding between floating obstacles like deadly dancers. Maya, meanwhile, spun helplessly in mid-air, her arms flailing as she tried to grab onto something, anything, to stop her uncontrolled tumbling. "Oh, for the love of the 7 moons," Gravok muttered, watching her crash into a training dummy with all the grace of a falling meteor. "This is painful to watch, literally painful." Zeph's scaled head turned toward his twin brother, a wicked grin spreading across his reptilian features. "Hey Nex, look at the human trying to fly. Think she needs a push?" "Maybe she forgot she does not have wings," Nex replied, his forked tongue flicking out with amusement. "Should we tell her, or let her figure it out when she hits the wall?" The Krillian twins found this absolutely hilarious, their hissing laughter echoing through the chamber as Maya bounced off another obstacle, her face turning an interesting shade of green. Gravok had to admit, even he was fighting back a chuckle. Humans were supposed to be intelligent, right? This one was performing like a brain-damaged glorbeast. "Torres," he barked. "The objective is to neutralize the enemy targets, not redecorate the walls with your body. Use your equipment." Maya finally managed to grab onto a support beam, breathing heavily as she tried to orient herself. Her hands shook as she reached for her pulse blaster, the standard-issue weapon designed specifically for zero-gravity combat. simple point-and-shoot technology that even a juvenile Cortac could master. She pulled the trigger. Nothing happened. She tried again, pressing buttons randomly like she was playing some primitive Earth game. Still nothing. The safety, you moron. Gravok's patience was wearing thinner than atmospheric pressure on a dead moon. Release the safety mechanism. It is the big red button marked safety in 17 different languages. Maya's face scrunched up in concentration, her small human brain apparently working overtime to process this complex instruction. She found the button, pressed it, then aimed at the nearest target. The pulse blaster fired in completely the wrong direction, the energy bolt sailing harmlessly into empty space. Outstanding, Gravok thought sarcastically. She cannot hit a stationary target in zero gravity. At this rate, she will accidentally shoot herself before she hits anything else. That was when disaster struck. Maya, still spinning from the recoil of her missed shot, collided with the chamber's primary gravity generator. The impact would have been harmless against the reinforced equipment, except her flailing hand somehow caught the emergency shut-off lever. The entire system crashed. 47 cadets suddenly plummeted toward the chamber floor as artificial gravity returned with a vengeance. Training equipment worth more than most planets' annual budgets came crashing down in a symphony of destruction. Gravok watched his beautiful, expensive, precision-engineered combat simulator turn into very expensive scrap metal, and all because one tiny human could not figure out basic movement in zero gravity. His mandibles ground together with a sound like grinding diamonds. That was it. That was absolutely it. Gravok's forearms unfolded from behind his back like the wings of some prehistoric death bird. His massive frame moved with surprising speed across the debris-littered training floor, each step making the reinforced deck plates groan under his 800 pounds of barely contained fury. Maya was still picking herself up from the gravity generator crash, her small hands brushing dust off her uniform, completely oblivious to the approaching storm. She looked up just as Gravok's shadow fell across her like an eclipse of doom. "You incompetent, worthless little meatbag," he snarled, his voice dropping to that dangerous whisper that made seasoned Cortac warriors wet themselves. "Do you have any idea what you just destroyed? That equipment costs more than your pathetic planet's entire military budget." The training chamber fell silent. Even the usually chatty Nexari twins stopped their hissing commentary. 46 pairs of alien eyes focused on the unfolding drama like spectators at a gladiator match. Maya opened her mouth to respond, probably with some pathetic human excuse, but Gravok was way beyond listening to explanations. His primary right hand came across her face with a crack that echoed through the chamber like a rifle shot. The slap sent Maya stumbling backward, her hand flying to her reddening cheek. Her dark eyes went wide with shock, and for a moment she just stood there, swaying slightly on her feet. Perfect, Gravok thought with satisfaction. Here comes the crying. Then the begging. Maybe some groveling if I am lucky. This was exactly what he expected from humans. Soft, emotional creatures who fell apart the moment someone showed them real strength. He had dealt with their kind before during the integration meetings, always whimpering about feelings and diplomatic solutions instead of facing problems head-on like proper warriors. Maya's eyes started to water, and Gravok felt that familiar surge of superiority. Time for his favorite part of breaking new recruits. "Listen carefully, you pathetic excuse for a cadet," he began, his voice rising to address the entire chamber. "This is what happens when inferior species try to play soldier with their betters. You cannot handle our technology, you cannot follow simple instructions, and you certainly cannot." But something was wrong. Maya was not cowering. She was not crying. She was not running away like every other broken recruit in Gravok's long and illustrious career of crushing dreams. Instead, she was quiet, eerily quiet. Her head was tilted slightly to one side, and those brown eyes that had seemed so nervous and frightened just minutes ago were now studying him with a cold, yet calculating intensity that made his chitinous spine tingle with something he refused to call concern. The other cadets seemed to sense it too. Zeph and Nex exchanged glances. their forked tongues flicking out nervously. The Vorthan cadets shifted their weight, battle instincts tingling. Maya slowly lowered her hand from her cheek, revealing a red mark in the perfect shape of Gravok's massive palm. She looked at him for a long moment, then did something that made every alien in the chamber take a step backward. She smiled. 40 seconds. That was all it took for Gravok's entire understanding of the universe to get turned upside down, shaken vigorously, and then stomped on by a 5'5" human female who had just been crying about a slap to the face. Second one, Maya's smile widened, revealing those small, flat human teeth that should have looked harmless but somehow managed to appear absolutely terrifying in that moment. Second 5, she rolled her shoulders in a way that made Gravok's combat instincts suddenly perk up and start screaming warnings he chose to ignore because, seriously, she was a human. At second 10, Maya moved. Now, Gravok had seen fast before. He had trained with Nexari speed demons who could strike faster than lightning. He had sparred with Vorthan aerial fighters who moved like deadly shadows. But Maya did not move fast in any way he recognized. She moved efficiently, like every single motion had been calculated 3 steps ahead. What the Gravok started to say then found himself stumbling backward as Maya somehow appeared beside him, her small hands doing something complicated to his left secondary arm that sent shooting pain up to his shoulder joint. Second 15, Gravok tried to grab her with his primary arms, because really how hard could it be to catch one tiny human? Except Maya was not where his hands expected her to be. She had dropped low, swept his legs, and was now behind him before his brain could process the fact that she had moved at all. Impossible, he thought, spinning around to face her. She was clumsy and confused just moments ago. How is she? Second 20, Maya demonstrated exactly how she was doing it by using some kind of leverage technique that should not have worked on someone 3 times her size. Gravok found himself airborne, which was particularly embarrassing for a species that prided itself on being impossible to lift. The watching alien cadets made various sounds of shock and disbelief. Zeph's jaw literally dropped open, his forked tongue hanging out like a dead snake. Nex was pointing with one scaled finger, making confused clicking noises. Second 25, Gravok hit the training deck with a crash that probably registered on seismic equipment 3 levels down. His compound eyes focused, just in time to see Maya land gracefully beside him, not even breathing hard. Okay, he thought, his pride stinging worse than his bruised exoskeleton. Lucky shot. Time to show this meatbag what real combat looks like. He rolled to his feet and charged, all 4 arms reaching for her with enough combined strength to crush a hover tank. Maya watched him come with that same calculating expression, like she was working out a particularly interesting math problem. Second 30, instead of dodging like any sensible opponent, Maya stepped forward into his charge. This was either incredibly brave or incredibly stupid. And Gravok was betting on stupid right up until her small hands found a specific pressure point on his neck that he was not even aware existed. The world went fuzzy around the edges. Second 35, Maya's Academy anatomy studies apparently included detailed information about Korthak physiology because she pressed another point behind his left auditory cluster that made his legs stop working properly. Gravok found himself on his knees, which was not where he had planned to be. This is not happening, he thought desperately. This cannot be happening. I am a trained Korthak warrior. She is a clumsy human who cannot work a pulse blaster. Second 38, Maya grabbed his lower mandible with both hands. The Korthak jaw structure was designed to detach under extreme stress to prevent fatal damage, but it was not supposed to be something an opponent could do on purpose. Especially not an opponent who weighed less than his left arm. Second 40, Maya twisted, pulled, and stepped back holding Gravok's entire lower jawbone in her hands like some kind of gruesome trophy. The training chamber erupted in shocked gasps, nervous chittering, and what sounded like someone being violently sick in the corner. Gravok knelt there on the debris-covered deck, staring at his own jaw in Maya's small hands, trying to process what had just happened. His mouth felt very strange and empty. Also, he was drooling, which was not helping his dignity situation at all. Maya examined the detached jaw with professional interest, turning it over like she was studying an interesting artifact. Then she looked at Gravok with those calm brown eyes and said, in a perfectly conversational tone, "You know, Commander, for someone who talks about proper warrior technique, your guard work could really use some improvement." Gravok tried to respond, but without his lower jaw, all that came out was a series of confused clicking sounds that probably translated to something like blow. How did you garble? Maya held up the jawbone helpfully. "Oh, you will want this back. It should reattach just fine if you get to medical within the next few minutes." Korthak anatomy is fascinating, really. Gravok's brain was doing something it had never done before in his 43 years of military service. It was completely shutting down from sheer confusion. He sat there on the training deck, jawless and drooling, trying to reconcile the mathematical impossibility of what had just happened. She was weak, his panicking mind kept repeating. She dropped her weapon. She could not activate a simple pulse blaster. She crashed into everything. She was weak. Except apparently she was not. Maya set his jawbone down carefully on a nearby equipment crate, then turned to address the stunned crowd of alien cadets like she was giving a casual lecture. "Sorry about the dramatic demonstration, everyone. I probably should have mentioned my background earlier." Background? What background could possibly explain a human moving like a trained assassin? "I spent 8 years with Earth's Deep Reconnaissance Division before joining the Academy Exchange Program," Maya continued, brushing dust off her uniform with the same casual air someone might use to discuss the weather. "Special Operations, Hostile Environment Survival, Close Quarters Combat Specialist. You know, the usual human military stuff." "The usual what now?" Zeph made a strangled hissing sound that might have been laughter or terror. "The usual human military stuff. You mean all humans fight like that?" Maya tilted her head thoughtfully. "Oh no, not all of them. I mean, basic military training covers most of this, but I had some extra certifications. Xenobiology combat applications, psychological warfare, anatomical weak point exploitation. That sort of thing." Gravok felt something cold and unpleasant settling in his stomach region. Psychological warfare? She had been studying their anatomy for combat purposes? But she had seemed so confused, so helpless. The fumbling around earlier, Nex whispered, his scaled face pale with realization. That was not real, was it? Maya's smile was genuinely apologetic. "Well, I really was having trouble with the zero-gravity controls. That part was completely authentic. But yes, I was also conducting observational reconnaissance on potential combat scenarios and opponent capabilities. Standard operational procedure when entering an unknown tactical environment." She was studying us, Gravok thought, horror creeping up his spine like ice-cold parasites. While we thought she was bumbling around like an idiot, she was analyzing our weaknesses, our movement patterns, our anatomy. The Academy medical team finally arrived, led by Chief Medical Officer Healer Vask, whose 6 arms were already reaching for various medical instruments. The moment Vask saw Gravok sitting jawless on the floor, all 6 arms froze in mid-air. By the 7 sacred surgical texts, Vask breathed, his voice filled with professional awe. "That is the cleanest mandible detachment I have ever seen. Look at those separation points. Perfectly aligned with the natural stress fractures, minimal tissue damage, no bone splintering whatsoever." Maya looked pleased with the compliment. "Thank you. We studied Korthak anatomy extensively during xenobiology training. Your jaw structure is actually quite elegant from an engineering perspective. The detachment mechanism is a brilliant evolutionary adaptation." Vask picked up the jawbone with reverent care, examining it like a priceless artifact. "The precision required to achieve this level of clean separation, it would take our best surgeons hours of careful work. How did you manage it in combat conditions?" "Practice," Maya said simply, "and proper leverage technique. Humans are really good at finding efficient solutions to complex problems." The words hit Gravok like a meteor strike to the brain. Efficient solutions. She had not overpowered him with brute strength. She had simply applied the right amount of force in exactly the right places to achieve maximum effect with minimum effort. Everything he thought he knew about humans was wrong. Their apparent weakness was not weakness at all. It was patience. It was observation. It was the tactical decision to appear harmless while gathering intelligence. How long? He tried to ask, but without his jaw it came out as ha-woo. Maya seemed to understand anyway. How long was I pretending to be incompetent? About 3 weeks, ever since I arrived. I needed time to assess the training environment, understand the social dynamics, and identify potential threat responses from different species. 3 weeks! For 3 weeks she had been playing the role of confused, clumsy human while secretly cataloging every detail of their combat capabilities, their anatomy, their behavior patterns. Gravok felt his worldview crumbling like an ancient building in an earthquake. Humans were not weak. They were terrifying. Director Toulon arrived at the training facility exactly 17 minutes after the incident, which was approximately 16 minutes faster than anyone expected. Her crystalline form shifted through the spectrum from clear to deep purple as she surveyed the destroyed equipment, the shocked cadets, and one very jaw-less drill instructor sitting in what could only be described as stunned silence. "Commander Gravok," she said, her voice carrying that particular tone that Academy administrators used when they were trying very hard not to laugh. "Would you care to explain why you are missing a significant portion of your face?" Gravok tried to respond, realized he still could not talk properly, and gestured helplessly at Maya, who was now helping other cadets reset the damaged training equipment like nothing unusual had happened. The Director Toulon's form shifted to an amused shade of green. "Ah, yes, the Human Special Forces incident. We have been expecting something like this." "Expecting it? Expecting it?" The Earth military liaison did mention that Cadet Toras might require specialized handling, Toulon continued, completely ignoring Gravok's confused gurgling sounds. "Apparently humans have this tendency to conduct what they call threat assessments when placed in new environments. We probably should have warned you." Probably should have warned him? They probably should have warned him? Healer Vask finished reattaching Gravok's jaw with professional efficiency, though he kept muttering appreciatively about the artistic quality of the detachment. The moment Gravok could speak again, he exploded. "She spent 3 weeks pretending to be incompetent. She studied our anatomy. She turned me into a teaching demonstration." "Yes," Director Toulon agreed cheerfully. "Quite impressive, actually. We are updating our training protocols based on her performance report." Training protocols. Based on her performance report. Gravok watched in fascination and horror as Maya effortlessly integrated with the other cadets, who now treated her with the same respectful wariness they reserved for unexploded ordnance. Zeph and Nex, who had been mocking her clumsiness just hours earlier, were now asking polite questions about human combat techniques. "The thing is," Maya was explaining to a group of fascinated Vorthan cadets, "humans do not have natural armor or enhanced strength, so we have to be creative. We study, we adapt, we find pressure points, we use leverage. Every species has exploitable weaknesses if you know where to look. Every species has exploitable weaknesses." Gravok touched his newly reattached jaw gingerly. It functioned perfectly, but somehow felt different now. Fragile. Vulnerable. "Commander," Director Toulon said, her form shifting to a sympathetic blue, "I understand this has been educational for you. However, I think you will find that having humans in our program will significantly improve our combat effectiveness. After all, if one small human can neutralize our best drill instructor in 40 seconds, imagine what an entire unit of them could accomplish." Gravok did not want to imagine that. He really did not want to imagine that. Besides, Toulon added with what was definitely amusement now, "Your detached jaw incident has already become legendary among the faculty. We are thinking of making it part of the Academy orientation video." Gravok's newly reattached jaw made a grinding sound that was not entirely voluntary. 3 days later, Gravok found himself doing something he never thought possible, approaching a human with actual respect instead of condescending tolerance. Maya was sitting in the academy mess hall, casually eating what appeared to be a sandwich, while reading a tactical manual on Nexari pressure points. Torres, he said, settling his bulk into the reinforced chair across from her. His jaw still felt slightly off, a constant reminder of his spectacular miscalculation. She looked up from her reading with that same calm expression that now made his chitinous spine tingle with caution instead of dismissal. Commander Gravok. How is the jaw feeling? Functional, he replied, then paused. I wanted to, that is, I may have misjudged. You mean you realize that assuming an entire species is weak based on appearance might not be the smartest tactical assessment? Maya asked, taking another bite of her sandwich. Gravok's mandibles clicked together in what he was learning to recognize as embarrassment. Here he was, a decorated Korthak military officer with 43 years of combat experience, being gently corrected by someone who looked like she should be asking for homework help. Something like that, he admitted. Though I have to ask, was the sandwich eating while studying alien anatomy always part of the psychological warfare training? Maya grinned, and this time it did not make him want to check for exits. Oh no, that is just me being efficient, human multitasking. We are good at it. As Gravok watched her return to her manual, he reflected on how spectacularly wrong he had been about everything. Humans were not weak. They were patient, calculating, adaptable predators who happened to look harmless. Honestly, that was somehow much more terrifying than if they had just been physically stronger.